So in the interest of your time, if you're just looking for a deck to pick up and put into your game, here you go. I have a bunch of decks. You can just sit here, pause the video, copy and paste, be on your way. This one's about speedrunning. This one is about meleeing and being able to take on pretty much anything. This one is about using a shotgun with Tala's Bleed, if you're familiar with Tala. This one is the Pyro Pinata build, which uses a lot of explosives and Molotovs. You're just blowing things up. This one is a gunslinger, sniper, assault rifle type of deck. This one here is if you're a total support, you're going to be good on use speed, healing, economy, etc. This one here is for hip firing with the bow, but we'll talk a lot more about that. And then this one is a super goofy kind of meme deck, but there's a lot to talk about here if you want to learn a thing or two about the game. So there you go. There's the decks. Now, I would encourage you, if you want to see why these things work the way that they do, I would stick around. And we'll go through deck by deck, and I'll give you a little bit of an example of how each one of these works in practice so you can learn a lot more about the game. Okay? Now, something I want to make very clear about each one of these decks is that I made them with the idea that you are going to experience different ways to play the game. These are not necessarily the best thing for your play style or the best objective deck in the game. These are things that will highlight different ways to experience the game, and then what I really encourage you to do is go through the, I don't know, 190 cards in this game as you unlock them and build your own deck to match your own play style. And hopefully, by showing you a little bit of each one of these decks, you start to realize, oh, maybe I want to try that type of thing, or maybe I want to try going fast, maybe I want to use melee, maybe I want to mix these things. Does that make sense? So, now that we got that squared away, let's go from the top down and we'll show you how these things work. So let's start with the melee deck, because I really feel like this one's gonna make you go, huh? As soon as you see it in practice. So, basic layout of the melee deck is we have some cards at the top that are going to make it so your efficiency is much higher when you are swinging a melee weapon, because every time you swing, you use up stamina. But currently, in the game, if you use these 3 cards, you can have over 100% stamina efficiency with your melee swings, so you have infinite stamina. So, you'll see what that looks like in practice. This chunk here is mainly about getting damage resistance, and then also getting a little bit of flat melee power when you are punching, in case you're doing a little bit of punching, but granted, you're going to be using your bat most of the time here. This section here is about healing, so Battle Lust and Ignore the Pain are going to be enough to keep you alive, on top of the fact that we have EMT Bag to get you more out of your healing there. Also, this deck works really good with Holly because she has a built-in heal. If you're not familiar with all the different cleaners, they have their own abilities, and if I get out of the way here, you'll see that Holly has her own heal every time she kills a Ridden. This deck works good on Holly. It also works good on Charisse because of the trauma resistance. If you take a look right underneath my camera, it says trauma resistance there for Charisse. But anyway, back to the deck and kind of talking about trauma resistance here. Let's keep going. So, back into the deck. We'll move on to these next 2 sections here, which don't really relate to anything else. But Berserker's going to make it so the more you kill, the more fun you have. You get more speed, you get more attack speed. Berserker's just a lot of fun to watch. Heavy Hitter makes it so you stumble whatever you hit the first time you hit it. So that's going to be a mutation, it's going to be a common. This buys you a lot of time to get damage into things, and it also buys your team a lot of time to not get them smashed by like a tall boy rushing in or something like that. And then down here is the part that I'm not sure people consider all the time, even people that have been playing the game for a long time. I'm really loading up on trauma resistance here, because something from my own experience is that I feel like trauma tends to be the enemy of a melee person. Now, I feel like a lot of players feel like, oh, I could just sit here and sit at 40 HP, which is the trauma floor, and I'm fine, and I'll just have enough damage resistance to get through it. I feel like this is a better way, frankly, because not taking any trauma means you have a huge health pool to work with all the time, and you'll see what that looks like in practice, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and pick Holly here, and then pick the melee deck, and you'll get to see it in action. Now, something to keep in mind here is if you were paying attention to the trauma section of the deck, you'll see that we have about 80% trauma resistance. Now, you either know you have a doc on your team or you're waiting to find out if you have a doc bot. So something you can do if you have burn cards is you can just pick up extra padding and get yourself to 100% trauma resistance if you'd like to, which is actually something I'm gonna do. Now, I'm gonna sit on this side of the screen so you can see the bat in all its glory, but something that happened recently with the DLC 3 update, so I guess I should mention this video was good from DLC 3 and backwards, is melee attachments. And the melee attachments are really strong. And we actually got really lucky here. We heal even more with the attachment here, and we get a little bit more sprint and move speed. And something I want to clarify real quick before you start seeing this in action is anytime you swing your weapon, you have stamina that goes down, right? So you see that little bar? I swing, and then I use up stamina. presumably, the more you swing something, you'll eventually run out of stamina. However, with the combo here of Slugger, Brazen, and Meth Head, take a look at that little counter in the bottom. That's stacks of Meth Head going up. Well, eventually, if I get to like, what, 6 or 7 stacks, I have infinite stamina. I can swing like this forever. Even with Padded Suit, which is supposed to go ahead and decrease your stamina efficiency. But because we have so much stamina efficiency, that's irrelevant. So I'm just going to walk through the level and just destroy everything. Now, one of the reasons why I really like going big on trauma resistance here is because of these little volatile dudes, because they really can mess you up and make your trauma go really, really high, even if you're playing really, really well, because they just tend to explode when you don't want them to, especially if you have teammates that are shooting them. But yeah, I'm just gonna walk through everything and be fine. I don't really have to pay attention to where I'm going. Berserker's gonna make it so I fire even faster. Is there a sleeper up there? Yeah, be careful. You'll start to learn where sleepers are as you become more familiar with the game. But yeah, let's just walk the level here. Something I also have on me is I have a stun gun, and I have that just in case the hag grabs me, because I think she's around somewhere. And she's just a miserable old thing, and she's probably gonna try to eat us. So we just want to be ready for that. So I'm just gonna keep walking here. And really, you can kind of go through the whole game like this. Like, Melee's really strong right now. It's mainly because of that stamina bug, but Melee's kind of always been really good. By the way, if you see that little lock right there, that means the door is locked. Just a heads up in case you're trying to run through things, which will be a little bit more relevant later when we're running through the level. Is there a sleeper down here? No, we're good. So yeah, we're pretty much already done with the level here. And I have all my HP except 1. Pretty cool. Now, if you take a look at my stacks of Meth Head, that little sword, you need to keep meleeing to keep it up. So if you're ever walking like this, you don't want to keep swinging, you can just punch every once in a while to keep the stack going. But now you see up here, there's a lock on that. If we were trying to like really run through this, maybe we throw a grenade at that preemptively, or we start shooting at it because we don't want to get stuck here, right? But also, we're melee, so it doesn't matter. So, ta-da! We just beat the first level of the game on the hardest difficulty. Easy peasy. Now, there are some modifications you can make to this deck, because I think right now this deck has about 50% damage resistance. If you want to get that a little bit higher, you can mix some things around if you so choose. Maybe get rid of Berserker, or maybe do some other things. Maybe get defensive maneuver in there in case you're worried about a bruiser or a tall boy when they become monstrous and they have a lot more damage attached to them. But yeah, that's the melee deck. Now, I should mention, in a world where we don't really have infinite stamina and this gets fixed, Hang is actually a very strong cleaner for melee because of things like peanut butter that spawn on the ground, which allows him to kind of get close to that infinite melee thing again anyway, because he doubles up on food benefits. So a little bit to know about Hang there. He's really good as a melee character. He lost some of his luster because of infinite stam, but he was really good before that. So don't forget about Hang. Let's try the speedrunning deck. Now, I do want to preface this. If you are not really that good at the game yet, you are not going to be good at speedrunning. Okay? Speedrunning does have some learning curve to it. I don't think this game is very hard to speedrun, but there is still some stuff you got to learn. But really the theme with this deck is you just have a lot of speed in it. Don't really feel like I need to go too into it. Fire in the hole is actually really nice if you're having trouble with something like body dump at the end of Act 3, or if you're just trying to zing through a level using some of your grenades, but especially body dump because of those T5 grenades. So a lot of sprint efficiency. We have some stamina regen. There's a couple ways you can twist this. Like some people really like the stamina regen so they can bunny hop everywhere. I have it built this way in case you're not really into the whole bunny hopping thing, especially if you're new. You probably don't even know what that really means in the Back for Blood sphere. Amped up in case you hit a horde, it heals you and you're going to hit hordes if you're just speedrunning through it. We have double grenade pouch to make it so that you have some grenades to throw at doors that might get in your way. We have share the wealth because you're probably ignoring copper anyway if you're just running through the level. This way you keep getting some copper. And then we have multi-tool to make it so you can get through some of the use speed things a little bit faster. If you're going to be speedrunning, I would recommend trying to get a Carly bot on your team. And then we have spiky bits to help you punch through some areas to kind of 1-2 common, because sometimes they'll clog you up, and this is probably one of the better ways to get through them if you don't have a grenade on you. Now, something I do want to mention about speedrunning before I show you how to do all this, here, let's go into No Hope, Act 1, let's do Resurgence again, is if you're going to speedrun, I would do it in your own single-player lobby. Players typically don't really like it when there's a speedrunner in the lobby who just runs ahead of everyone, because it makes the whole pace of the game feel a lot different. Just my advice, if you're playing a game, you're going to have a much better time if you do it by yourself than if you try doing it in a public lobby. So in terms of who you want to pick if you're going to be speedrunning, the clear favorite, honestly, it's not even close. Don't consider anybody else. Go Evangelo. Because if you're playing by yourself, Evangelo has this little thing here called Breakout. Take a look behind here. This allows him to break out of like a sleeper grab or a stalker grab or really much anything that restrains you. He also has stamina regen. He's got a little bit of move speed too, which is cool. And he also starts with an Uzi, which is a pretty nimble gun. So I'm going to pick Evangelo here and get on into it. And then in terms of a burn card, if you're worried about burn cards, I don't know, pick what you want. You could either do, ooh, we have the dark here. So it's going to be a lot of dark snitches. But you can pick a Windfall if you want more copper. Maybe you want to go like a Dusty's SMG just in case you get yourself a nice upgraded SMG right away. Now, hey, I got a green Uzi. I'll take that. And I don't have anything here in terms of move speed stocks, which is really what I'm looking for if I want to continuously upgrade my gun. Now, actually, I might buy armor just in case I really get donked here, but things you want to buy when you're in the shop and you're speedrunning, it would be something like grenades. Because sometimes you see a locked door and you just need to get it out of your way. Grenades really good for that. I don't really think you need to go pipe bombs. You can go a little bit of pills here to heal you up, and then maybe another stun gun in case things really are not going your way. Now, something to know about running and speedrunning in this game, all guns have the same sprint speed, okay? So I could have this, I'm gonna sprint at the same speed as if I have this Uzi. I could have a big ol' LMG M249, I'm sprinting at the same speed. Now, walk speeds are different. You'll see I'm actually walking a bit slower here with this M4, where if I pick up this Uzi, you can see I'm walking a lot faster now. But sprint speeds are all the same. Reason why walking can matter is, especially if I have something like the Marathon Runner here, which gets rid of the strafing penalty, it makes it so you're a lot more able to do stuff like this as you're going through the level, okay? Also, pro tip, as we prep this level, you see all this crap in the way? If I try running through that, it might get a little spicy. So use sound to your advantage. Now everything's over here. You can use this in a lot of different scenarios. It doesn't just have to be at the safe room door here, but typically you use sound to help you be in a good position and have things run towards you from an area that you can see in front of you rather than things sneaking up behind you. Okay? So, got these guys killed out. Hopefully we don't get jumped right away by mutations, but we might because it happens pretty frequently right up here. And it looks like we're good. Got that sleeper. And we're just going to try to run through this, see if we get ourselves a locked door. We don't. And we'll be fine here. Get rid of you. Get rid of you. Checkered sleepers up here. Might be a sleeper up there. No, we're fine. Get off me! There we go. Grenades are good for that, too. So, actually, I'm just going to do another one right here, just because this gets a little chunky, a little tight. I'm going to lower this, which is where that use speed comes into play that we had in the deck. And we're just going to keep running. See, that door's locked. I'm actually just going to see if I can run through it like that, rather than using up my nade, because we have one more chunky spot up here. So this is what I'm talking about where... Actually, let's use this. Where one of the things you got to know with speedrunning is where to look and where you get hung up on. Oh, that's actually a stinger right here. Use my nade. And now I'm out of nades, but I should be clear for the rest of the level. There's going to be one more door that could be in my way, which is this guy up here, but I can see it a long ways coming, so I can start shooting at it as I get closer to it. And yeah, you can see that the door's locked. You can see the door's locked to there. You can see it lock on top of the lever, but I can just start doing this right here, and I'll be fine. And if I come up here, ta-da, it should be done. I don't see any sleepers, and just like that, the level's done. Cool. And this is actually a pretty tight level up until that last part in the, I don't know, truck yard. So speedrunning gets even a bit easier on some of the later levels because you have more wide open space to strafe around things. There's a lot of tight corridors in there. But again, that's where learning the game matters a lot, because if you don't know what you're doing and you try speedrunning and you don't know where you're going to get caught up on, you don't know where the doors are probably going to get in your way, you're going to be very bad at it. So learn the game first, and then once you really have a good understanding of it, maybe that's when you try out speedrunning. That's my personal advice. And we have the Tala shotgun bleed deck. So this deck here is around the idea of using a shotgun and then also using Tala, because if you're familiar with Tala, she's one of the new DLC characters. She has the ability to cause bleed on her targets when she shoots them, and it's actually quite a bit of damage. So take a look here. She can cause bleed. And I can't quite remember the numbers, but if you go ahead and watch one of my videos when I covered Tala, it's something like 1 damage every 0.2 seconds, and it can stack like 10 times or something like that. I don't know, it gets really high, especially when you start adding on things like glass cannon and all that, okay? But now as for the deck itself, let's talk a little bit about it and why we do things this way. So you're going to see mainly a lot of damage in this deck because Tala has some of the highest damage in the whole game. One, because of her bleed, but also she brings in those warp chests, which allow you to really just scale up in power anyway. So we're going to focus on damage here. We have Confident Killer, which just gives you a lot of damage really quickly, especially if you're playing at a high difficulty because there are so many mutations. We have Buckshot Bruiser because if you're going to be using a shotgun, this allows you to get just a little bit of temporary health on top of your main HP, which is really good for trauma prevention. Even if you only have like 1 or 2 temp HP on top of you, because Buckshot Bruiser doesn't give you that much temp HP unless there's like a boss. It's enough to help mitigate a little bit of trauma. We have Shredder in here because Shredder works per pellet if you're using a shotgun, so this makes it so everybody on your team does a lot more damage. We have Hyper Focus to make it so you have a lot more weak spot damage. We have Wide Mouth to give you reload speed on your mark because it's just a good card and I like having it in here. Also, if you're using an AA-12, you might be kind of looking for ammo pretty often. We have Glass Cannon for more damage, but also something to keep in mind with Glass Cannon. Tala's bleed works when she does like at least 1.1 damage. Now a bash only does 1 damage, a razor wire only does 1 damage per tick. But with Glass Cannon, that gets you to like 1.25 on these things. So suddenly she's causing bleed with like everything in the game, including razor wire. So that's where Glass Cannon comes into really high effect with Tala here. I have Mad Dash because a little bit of mobility is really nice on any difficulty, but especially like as you go higher in the difficulties, not getting hit is actually a really big part of the game, and you start to learn how to move around things, and Mad Dash just gives you that little bit more nimble nature to your character. Reckless Strategy for more damage. Mark for Death. I think Mark for Death's really nice because not only does it give your whole team more damage, but it helps your team focus on something. Okay? I can't overstate that enough, especially in a quick play match. People are just doing whatever the heck they think they should do. But if you give them a target to look at, Lizard Brain takes over and people shoot the thing that's highlighted. I am a big believer in when you play quick play, not only do you have to play Back for Blood, but you also have to play a whole totally different game, which is called quick play, and they require 2 different skill sets. One of which is trying to get the team to work together well, and Mark for Death, I think, does a lot for that. I don't think Mark for Death's a good pick on Walker, by the way, because he already has a ping that does that. I don't think you need to double stack that. Give Mark to Death for somebody else. We have large caliber rounds for a little bit more damage, but also bullet penetration. Because if you take a look at bullet damage here, you might be tempted to go, oh, well, what if I go and get more damage here? An effective range is my shotgun, right? I think bullet pen's going to do you more favors, and that 2.5% extra damage, negligible. Something you could consider here is, actually, wait, what? Do I not have... Oh my god, I gotta change this. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I switched something out here. I gotta clarify this too. You don't need Knowledge is Power in this deck. What you really want in this deck is Empowered Assault. Because Empowered Assault is a really good card on Tala. And on the topic of like when I was just looking at bullet damage here, I was like, well, you don't really need to pick combat training, even though it works per pellet and you get all that extra stumble damage because you're going to have Empowered Assault anyway. But I apparently didn't have Empowered Assault in my deck. I must have been testing stuff and wanted to see numbers. So I put Knowledge is Power in there. You want to have Empowered Assault in this deck because it allows you to continuously chain stumble on mutations as long as you're the one that kills them. And Tala's bleed works really, really well with that because she's really good at last hitting things because the bleed tricks things or tickles things down. Okay? Sorry. Oh god, I'll have to update the beginning of the video with that too. Let's put like a little, what do you call it? Image over the top. So ammo belt here is really nice because it gives you a little bit more ammo capacity if you're using something like an A12, but also it gives you more reload speed in case you don't have that. It makes your 870 fire faster, it makes your TAC fire faster. Something to know about reload speed is it makes shotguns fire faster, it makes sniper rifles fire faster if they are something that has to go like every single time or every single time you fire it. That's where reload speed becomes really, really helpful. I also have Patient Hunter in here. I think a lot of people like to go hipfire builds with shotguns, but I personally like being able to aim in because it really tightens in your bullets. And then that also allows you to still use something like Patient Hunter to get even more damage out. And then at the bottom here, we have Scattergun skills because it's just a huge chunk of reload speed. Okay? And now, considering what I was saying before with the Knowledge is Power thing and how that's stuck into the deck, let me put Knowledge is Power back in so I can showcase to you how some of these damage numbers work. So I'm going to try to not kill one of these guys, but just let you see the bleed. So you see how I hit that guy right there, and there's a bunch of those ticks coming in, which is that bleed? That bleed can become very powerful in a bunch of different scenarios. Again, especially if you get razor wire going. Actually, let me go pick up some razor wire. So if I put this here, I'm going to try to open this and get away from the bots. But you'll see that if I come up here, you see how they're hitting that and now they're bleeding every single second? Anything that comes in here through that razor wire is going to start bleeding. So on holdout levels, Razor wire and Tala, ooh, really, really tight. But again, you have to make sure you have something that increases your base damage. And that's going to be something like glass cannon. Okay? So really where this build shines, in my opinion, is if we run into a mutation because you just absolutely crap out damage. So I'm going to run forward a little bit here, get things away from me, and see if we can just go kill some stuff. Here, so we got ourselves a slasher up here, and we can just absolutely destroy him. Like, he doesn't even stand a chance. Just like that. And now we have Empowered Assault, that little ting you just heard, and then you see the bullet. That means Empowered Assault is active. So the next mutation that we shoot or hit, it is instantly going to get stumbled, which allows you to just really start chaining mutations one after the other without having to worry too hard. So you got this bad boy here. Empowered Assault is going to make it so he stumble when he's doing a little dance like that. That means that he stumbled. And we can just keep chaining that. The bleed is so good at getting that final hit. Now, one last thing I want to show you real quick is hip firing versus aiming down sights with a shotgun, which is the reason why we didn't go things like mag coupler or quick kill inside of this deck. Not only do we get these extra stacks on the bottom of Patient Hunter, which is like an extra 30% damage. You see that 1, 2, 3 that just came in? Also, it allows us to narrow in our pellets here. So I'm going to try to keep the same distance here about. Here, I'll do it right here. And then if I shoot over here, there's the spread. You can kind of see it, right? Here, I'll try to shoot up there too. See that spread? It's pretty wide. Now, if I aim down my sights here, you'll get to see it's a lot tighter than this was over here. Like, much, much tighter. It's this little circle right here versus this wide spread that we had right here. You get a lot more accuracy per pellet. That doesn't make any sense in real life, but that's how it works. So, use that to your advantage. You'll do a lot more damage if you're aiming down sights. Now, the next deck here is called Pyro Pinata, and this is an old favorite from the community that used to be very, very, very strong, and it's still effective, but it used to be way too good. So the whole idea with this deck is that you use a lot of Molotovs, and you can just keep burning stuff, and that makes you make more accessories that you can just keep fueling your own power with or your team's power. So it gets pretty nutty. So if we're going to have a lot of fire, we have to have Pyro in our deck, which increases our fire damage by 100%. And also gives us 3 temporary health for each thing we kill with fire. Very strong. And then Pinata, which is the thing that makes it so every time you kill something with an accessory, you have a chance to drop an accessory. That's where this feedback loop gets really, really insane. Used to be stronger, but it's still pretty good. And now let me actually rearrange the deck a little bit here so we're kind of focused on one chunk and then the other. So that's a little bit better. So now we're gonna have Fire in the Hole, which makes it so every time you throw one of these accessories, you get yourself some temp HP, which is very, very nice, and some move speed if you need it. We have increased accessory damage just to kind of add fuel to the fire, literally. We have double grenade pouch to give you more inventory slots to throw more Molotovs and to have more in your inventory, or grenades, really whatever you want. Molotovs work best with this though. We have Magician's Apprentice just on the off chance that you get to reuse one of your items, which is actually really nice on Hang a while back. And now we also have Expired T5, which is another one of those things that used to be really strong. But I think Expired T5 has a really good spot in this deck because in case you do get surrounded or your team gets surrounded or things get out of control, Expired T5 can still act as a get out of jail free card because it does 20 fire damage to weak spots, which means it's basically going to do at least 40 damage to a common, which is going to kill any common outright. On top of the fact that we have Pyro, so you're absolutely going to murder everything around you. And it still takes a little bit of damage after that fact, which will also kill common around here based off of what we have here with Pyro and then later in the deck Hyper Focused. Expired T5 has a nice spot in here and I've really enjoyed it. Now on to the other part of this deck, which is the shotgun part of it. So in my mind, this deck works best with a Belgian, okay? And the reason for that is because it can help fuel your Molotovs. You'll see that anytime you get a kill with a secondary gun, a Belgian's included in that, you get a chance to drop ammo, a Molotov, or a bait jar. So if you drop a Molotov, that adds to your Pyro fire here. And then we have Quick Kill and Mag Coupler. Both of these get rid of your aim down sights, but these help make it so your Belgian has a little bit tighter spread, and also so your Belgian can fire faster. We have a Buckshot Bruiser here, which gives you a little bit of temp health. Now, you're already getting a ton of temp health as it is with Pyro, but in the situations where you are not massively firing down on things, this does help your trauma, protect your trauma a little bit with that temp health. Scattergun skills, because again, more reload speed for your Belgian. Hyper Focused, because it gives you more damage on your Belgian, and I don't think the move speed while shooting or attacking, like the debuff there, it doesn't affect the Belgian. Don't know why, but it doesn't affect the Belgian, which is super nice. And then Ammo Stash makes it so you have infinite ammo on your Belgian because it's a secondary gun. And then finally, we have Down in Front because if you have somebody in front of you like a melee person, this lets you throw your Molotov and then you're not burning your teammates alive, or you can shoot your shotgun more liberally and you're not destroying the team around you, because you will murder everything if it gets in your way, okay? And one other card that could be really good for this deck, in case you're not really feeling the expired T5 thing, is Hazmat Specialist. Reason being is that Highwayman also drops bait jars, and you're gonna have bait jars that are dropping if you're playing Hoffman. So you could go and get rid of, let's say, expired T5, because again, if you're not feeling expired T5, you think that's a deal breaker. Hazmat Specialist is gonna let you get more usage out of your bait jars. It's also going to give you the chance to spawn more bait jars. So something to include there. In terms of the cleaner to pick for this, it is by far not even close. You pick Hoffman, because Hoffman gets another offensive inventory slot. He also has the chance to basically be Pinata. So whenever Hoffman kills a Ridden, there's a chance that either ammo or an offensive accessory is going to drop, which helps fuel even more into your Molotov pile, or really whatever else you want to throw at them. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to pick Hoffman, because I just want to get a Belgian right away, so you can see what the Belgian looks like, and Mom starts with a Belgian, so I'm going to pick Mom. But if you're doing this, I would go and pick Hoffman and then try to find a Belgian, or if you have a Mom on your team, ask for her Belgian, okay? Now, if you have down in front, you can crouch and then you're not going to damage your teammates. I can shoot right at them, nothing happens. So that's one of the benefits of down in front. And you can see I can just sit here and keep shooting with this Belgian. I have infinite ammo and it fires pretty fast. And the Belgian is one of the strongest shotguns in the game, if not the strongest. So pretty nice. Now, that being said, I'm going to murder my bots real quick. Bye, Hang. So the reason why I did that is because I just want to show you a little bit about how this all works. So I'm going to try to piss everything off in front of me here, pull it towards me, and then throw fire on the ground. Now, one nice part, actually, on that topic is I'm pretty sure I hear a bruiser. Tall boy, take a look at that. Now, these guys are very weak to fire, in case you didn't know that. So actually, if I do this, he might just die. I just used expired T5 and he blew up right in front of me because I damaged him a little bit with the fire. And then expired T5 is just a lot of extra damage on top of that if you really build into it. So I didn't hear anything drop, but again, that's where Hoffman becomes really, really nice because he will also cause things to drop. And I might actually make something drop if I kill it like that too. But I'm going to try to get another really good group going up here. This build works best if you're dealing with a lot of hordes, because then you can kind of funnel things in front of you, like let's say in front of this doorway. And then when you do that, things die in the fire, and then they start dropping things for you. Anytime you hear that, that means that something just dropped. Okay? So let me back up here because things are puking on me, and we'll see what we found. And just like that, we dropped some pills. Now, I can't use pills because I have expired T5 on, but it's not that big a deal because this is something I would usually give to my team. This build works really, really good in a team setting because you can focus on all of the commons, and then you have 3 people on your team that focus on the mutations. But obviously, I'm going to have a little bit of trouble with this build dealing with something like that puker over there because he's really good at just getting away from me. And I have a shotgun that doesn't have intense range. Oh, I forgot these guys punch. Oh, God. The fire on the Molotovs does bonus damage to bruisers and tall boys. Not rippers and not crushers, but to bruisers and tall boys, they take a lot of extra damage. I think bruisers take 3 times more damage and tall boys take 5 times. On to the admin reload sniper build. The whole idea with this deck is that you have 2 weapons that are both very strong, be it like an AR or a sniper, and then you just swap between them often. Because with admin reload, every time you stow your weapon, it reloads. Things to know about admin reload is it is affected by reload speed. It's not just it's in your pocket, it's instantly reloaded. And then you have 2 is 1, 1 is none, which makes it so you can have 2 primaries. So that's where you have the AR and then also the sniper rifle. We have cocky to help with our swap speed, not only because 2 is 1 makes our swap speed worse, but the whole point is that you're going through your guns really quickly, right? We have hyper focus, reckless strategy, patient hunter, glass cannon, marked for death, and confident killer, all just for a lot of damage. Okay? We have Mad Dash for a little bit of speed. We have Knowledge is Power just so you can get a little bit more weak spot, but mainly so you can see numbers on things so you know if you need to disengage and run. I love Knowledge is Power because it really gives me a lot more intel as to what's going on around me. And it's just fun to see the numbers. Silver Bullets for a little bit more damage. Ridden Slayer for a little bit more damage. Empowered Assault for that same thing where you can keep chaining mutations, especially if you are playing this deck because you're doing so much damage and you're sniping a lot, which usually means that you are getting the final hit on a mutation. So Empowered Assault's really good on this, and it just keeps things away from your team. And then finally, Ammo Belt, 1 to help it so your AR has a lot more ammo, but 2, reload speed will help your sniper rifle fire faster if you're using a Phoenix or a Barrett. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to get rid of Silver Bullets. I'm going to put Large Cal in there because, again, I just think Large Cal is a better card than Silver Bullets. And one little piece of trivia regarding this deck, in case you didn't know, is that Run and Gun will actually make it so that you can sprint faster after shooting your Barrett shot. So I don't know if you want to put it in your deck, but it's nice to have if you see it inside of a card shrine. A little bit of a hidden effect that you might not have known about. In terms of who's good with this deck, I mean, it really depends on who you want to pick. I think Jim is a natural fit because Jim gets more damage every time he gets a precision kill up until he takes damage, and this can be up to 25% extra damage. He has extra reload speed, which is really good for the snipers, and then also he has team weak spot damage. Magnum's pretty cool too. But frankly, this deck can work on like anyone. Now, since we have those dual primaries, we can pick up any gun in here, so M4s kind of suck, but I could pick up the shotgun here in the meantime. And maybe I'll find a good gun in here. Nah, not really anything I'm looking for. I'm actually going to buy a little scope for my sniper here. And really, your whole goal here is just to rip and tear, because you do a lot of damage with this deck. I also, we haven't really talked about it, but I usually like to run a flashbang on No Hope just because of the bosses. Especially if you're going to be the one who's doing a lot of damage. You want to have them in place so you can smash them down real hard and real fast. And one other pro tip. Medkits are usually something that not your doc holds, but the rest of your team holds, and then you drop it if you go down so that your doc can use that medical expert on you. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, oh, also another pro tip I totally forgot about is you can farm stacks for Jim while you're in the safe room. You see that little 2 on the bottom, and now it's going to be a 3? That's his damage going up because he's getting precision kills. And a precision kill is anything that's a weak spot kill. So in the case of a common, it's their head. In the case of a mutation, it's their weak spot. So easy peasy if you just want to get an easy 25% extra damage before you even leave the room. And ta-da, rip and tear, let's do it. Now, you don't want to take damage, right? Because then Jim will lose all his stacks. But at the same time, don't worry about it too much. But yeah, you just like go through it. Use up a little bit of my shotgun. Switch my gun. Now it's reloading in the background. And then I just shot a couple of those. Now I do this. Some people like power reload and power swap, those types of things. I've never really been that into them. But those are things you can choose as well if you're really good at managing your low ammo situation. Here, get out of my way, buddy. And I think Jim's kind of one of those higher skill players where the better you are at the game, the better Jim is. Because if you're not getting hit, then you maintain that giant chunk of extra damage. 25% is nothing to scoff at. It's one of the biggest bonuses in the game. Typically, when I play this, I don't really settle in on a shotgun. I think shotguns are probably some of the highest damage guns. But I typically go like a sniper and then something like a SCAR or an AK. So I'm more of like a medium to long range player. That way I can kind of keep things from hitting me. And then I can just pour out damage from a distance, which is really nice. This role is really good at taking out snitches. You can typically one-tap snitches, no big deal for your team, which makes them a lot less threatening. Because something I notice in quick play a lot is that people go, oh god, a snitch, what are we gonna do? We're gonna team fire, 3, 2, 1, what's going on? If you're playing this build, you just go, hi, I'm a sniper, bam, and then they're dead. Right in their weak spot, okay? Okay, so the Pus Flinger, pro tip about these guys, you see their jars? Yeah, I'm gonna lose my damage, who cares? Get out of my way. Their jars are their weak spot, which is kind of cool. You see that giant damage I just did? It's because that's their weak spot. Now let's move on to the total support build, because there's a couple of things to know here, and I think support is a play style that a lot of people really like, especially if they're not really familiar with the game yet. I guess on that topic, let me say something here real quick, which I think might help some players that are kind of not really understanding the flow of the game. I think a natural feeling when you're new to a game and you're not really sure what's going on is to load up on things like health, right? Like, oh god, I need more health in case I'm getting hit a lot, which makes it so I can deal with more crap. Or I need to go damage resistance, that type of thing. My opinion on that with this game is that's kind of a trap, because then, like, there's a lot of opportunity cost in this game. If you don't know what opportunity cost is, it's the thing you give up in favor of picking something else. So if you only have 15 cards and you're sitting here spending it on things like, I don't know, health, that means you're not getting other really sick bonuses like maybe damage or maybe speed or things like that, that in my opinion keep you alive better than having extra health does. Something can't hurt you if it's already dead. Something can't hurt you if it can't hit you. So with that aside, in case you have people on your team that are getting absolutely clobbered, that's where the total support deck comes in play. So this is going to talk a little bit about all the things you can do from a medical standpoint. And this is actually kind of a complicated topic. I'm not going to go too into all of it. We've covered videos in the past that are still pretty relevant as to how this stuff still works. But let's just go through the cards and talk about why they're useful. Okay? So medical professional, what this does is if you use a defib or a first aid kit on your teammate, that will restore one of their extra lives, which is a really big deal. We'll show you that in practice, but especially in things like No Hope where they don't get restored in between levels, Medical Professional is really nice to have. Now, we also have Needs of the Many, which gives everybody an extra team life because on No Hope, you don't start with a team life. Very good for that. Poultice. Now, if you're already skimming through this deck, something you might be noticing is I don't have healing efficiency in it because frankly, I don't think you need it. And we'll talk about how we replace healing efficiency. Okay, and one of the ways we do that is with Poultice. So when you use a medical accessory, the target recovers an additional 20 HP over 30 seconds. So medical accessory is like your pills or your bandages, or in case you don't know, Doc comes with built-in bandages. So if we take a look at the cleaners here and then Doc comes with built-in bandages here. It's part of her. Can heal each teammate for 25 HP once per level. It's really 30 because she has healing efficiency built in, but whatever. So, ta-da, old calculator. If you've watched the Swing Point channel long enough, you've definitely seen this thing pop up a couple times. So, a white bandage, which by the way, another pro tip if you're new to the game, make sure you're upgrading your accessories when you see them in the shop. Way more useful half the time than having extra pockets from the shop. Those upgrades really change the game, but that's besides the point. So if you take a gray bandage here, that heals for 25, right? Now, if you were to go and give that an extra 50% healing efficiency, multiplied by 1.5, your bandage is now healing 37.5, all right? Pretty cool. So if we go 37.5 and we subtract 25 from that, that means that that extra 50% healing efficiency gave you an extra 12.5 healing on your bandage. Now, what did we just say about Poultice? What Poultice does is it gives any medical accessory an extra 20. Okay? So this card is better than 50% healing efficiency on a white bandage, which is a really big deal. Also, Doc's bandages are always white bandages. They don't upgrade like the other things do in the shop. Pain pills, here you go. So pain pills, they give you temporary health. If you don't know what temporary health is, it's like that blue health that you see that kind of trickles down over time. That's why it's called temporary health. Temporary health always goes away. Pain meds never give you regular HP, no matter how much you upgrade them, unless you are using Poultice. Poultice will make it so regular pills can give you regular HP, which is a really big deal. You don't need EMT bag. Promise you. On top of the fact that there's things that affect your healing efficiency in this game, like Pure Chaos, and Poultice is immune to Pure Chaos, so it's amped up. So it's kind of a meta tip for you. Now, Group Therapy here, speaking of things that are affected by healing efficiency, is another nice card. So anytime you use a medical accessory, all teammates heal for 8 HP, which is really nice to have. So if you use a bandage, or if you use a Doc bandage, or you use painkillers on anyone, everybody on the team benefits from it. And then that's where Support Scav comes into play, because let's say you find pills, but you don't really have room for them, but you don't want to run by them. You can just throw them on someone, and then everybody on the team gets topped off a little bit. And also, Poultice will kick in, right? So Support Scav just gives you a much more of that, like, keep everybody trickled up all the way rather than these big fat heals, okay? Field Surgeon's nice. Again, same concept, like trickling of healing. This will help get rid of trauma on your team. Trauma is like the most expensive thing to get rid of in this game, and there's a lot of easy ways to do it, but Field Surgeon is a way to kind of really synergize with Support Scav, Group Therapy, Poultice, the whole idea of healing by many things rather than a couple of strong things. In terms of total support, we have Amped Up and then also On Your Mark. These are cards that anytime a horde is called, your team benefits from it, really. So Amped Up is going to make it so your team heals 20 HP, and this can stack, by the way, so if everybody on your team has it, you can get a lot of HP every single horde. However, what's really nice about Amped Up is it's not affected by healing efficiency, so you might think that's a bad thing, but if something like Pure Chaos shows up that decreases your healing efficiency, Amped Up is actually really, really nice to have. And generally speaking, if you're wondering if things are affected by healing efficiency, you see how the card says recovers? That means it's not. However, if the card says something like heals, that means it's affected by healing efficiency. And you'll actually get a little tooltip next to the card that says efficient healing. Okay? And then we have Well Rested, which provides Team Overheal. Now, if you don't know what Team Overheal is, frankly, I think it's one of those things that's easier to see while I explain it rather than me just outright explaining it. So let me do that real quick. So I'm gonna go do a little thing called Taking Trauma out here, and then I'll show you how Overheal works. Explode on me, please. Thank you. Feels nice. So there's actually a few things we can show you here. I should get picked up, and the bot should probably clean the rest of this up for me. Now, I'm gonna try to heal real quick. with my basic bandages. And you'll actually see a couple of things in play. You won't see overheal right away, but you'll see a couple of things happen. So I'm going to use my bandage. And what you'll start seeing is poultice kicking in. You see that extra HP that starts to trickle in? That's poultice, which is pretty cool. And actually, another thing I think I can show you here. Die, die, die. If I use a bandage again, you're going to see a couple of things happen. One, I'm going to get temporary HP. Two, take a look at the bots. All their HP is going to go up a little bit. Cool. So you saw their HP go up, which was the effect of group therapy. Now you also saw that I got temporary HP. Well, how did I get temporary HP? So what you can see here is I'm at my max capacity of HP because I have like 35 trauma or something like that, right? You see like that dead looking bar at the bottom? That means that's trauma HP, and you cannot heal into that unless you have temporary HP from pills or a little thing here called overheal. Okay? So what overheal lets you do is, let's say I have a bandage that heals for, I don't know, probably like 25 or something right now, or 30. That means that 20% of that is going to be turned into temp HP. Ta-da! Because I have overheal. It lets me heal into my trauma. It's only temporary HP, but it lets me heal into my trauma. It lets me heal into a little thing called bolstered health, if I could show that to you. One other pro tip about temp HP, by the way, is you don't really lose temp HP when you're in the safe room for some reason. So you can use that to your advantage in some scenarios. And then something we should probably cover real quick, because you're probably curious as to what the heck it means. Like, oh, well, if that's overheal, then what is bolstered health? Let me show you what bolstered health is real quick. All right, so we got a couple of things to show you here. Now, I got rid of the overheal in my deck, and I replaced it with bolstered health. So what you'll notice here is if I pick up this bandage and I heal myself, I don't have temporary HP anymore. In fact, I can't even heal myself anymore because I'm at my max capacity. That trauma acts as like a hard cap on my HP. Can't do anything with it. Now, temporary HP can be healed into trauma, right? So if I take this, I go, huzzah. Now, I have a bunch of temp HP there. And you might be wondering what those little blue bars are at the end of each of our HP bars, mine and the bots included. That basically is just more temporary HP capacity once you are at your typical health limit. Okay? That's really all it is. You just have more room for more temp HP. Not regular HP, temp HP. Okay? In fact, if I were to try and use a bandage right now, I can't, because that's only for temp HP. But I can use pills again and fill that back up. Now on to the rest of the deck here. We have Box of Bags, which gives everybody on the team extra support slots, which is really, really nice because it is the most amount of support slots you can get from any card. If you take a look at inventory over here, you can either get +1 or +2 or +1 for everybody on the team, which is effectively +4. And in a team that's really working well together, typically what happens is Doc holds on to bandages actually, and then everybody else on the team holds on to first aid kits, because that allows things like medical professional to come into play, where you can restore the lives of teammates that have lost their lives. Again, really big deal on no hope difficulty. Now we have Copper Scav here, which causes 2 more copper piles to spawn on the map. Each of those are a medium pile, which is worth 50 copper. And you can see all the copper, which is really nice if you're still trying to learn the game and where things spawn. And then we have money grubbers here. And each time your team loots copper, you gain 3 additional copper up to 25 times. So how do I express this? Let's say you pick up 100 copper without money grubbers. It's not in your deck. You picked up 100 copper. Well, now you just gained 100 copper. Now you found another pile and it's 100 copper. Well, you pick it up and you get 100 copper. And then you find another pile. It's 100 copper. You find another pile. It's 100 copper. And every single time you pick it up, you get 100 copper. Makes sense, right? So if we were to have that same scenario happen, and instead we have money grubbers in our deck, it works a little bit differently. So if you find 100 copper pile on the ground, that copper pile that you pick up, it's going to provide 103 copper to you. If you find another pile, your second pile, that second pile is going to give you 106 copper. Then that third pile is going to give you 109 copper. So you have 103 plus 106 plus 109. So the more copper piles you pick up, the more bonus you get per copper pile. Does that make sense? So you don't just get an extra 3 on each copper. You don't get 103, 103, 103, 103, 103. Instead, what you get is 103, and then you get 106, and then you get 109. It compounds on itself. It's a very strong card if you have a bunch of copper piles on the map. So, since Copper Scav causes more copper piles to spawn on the map, Money Grubbers compounds with it, very, very well. We have utility belt here to give you some more quick slots. The reason why we go utility belt rather than the one that gives everybody an extra slot is because if you're the medic, you're going to need them more than anybody else does anyway, and you're just losing less HP because it's minus 10 HP there, okay? And then finally, we have these two cards down here. We talked about we're well rested already. We have multi-tool and combat medic. These provide use speed. Now, use speed is pretty much anything you interact with. So that could be at the end of Act 1 on Sound of Thunder in case you've gotten stuck there. It's that level where you have to load the howitzer. Really, really nice for loading the howitzer. This, yeah, Sound of Thunder all the way down here. Now, something to know about use speed is that it also affects revive speed. And take a look here. You might actually see these right next to each other. We have revive speed right here, and then use speed. So that might confuse you a little bit to hear that use speed is basically a better version of revive speed. And all I can really say about that is that's just the way it is. So if you get to pick between 50% revive speed and 50% use speed, pick use speed every time, because use speed affects picking people up off of walls, loading containers, opening containers, and again, pretty much anything that has a progress bar on top of your head, where revive speed is only for reviving. So you may as well pick use speed. Now let's move on to a hipfire bow deck. Now, do I think that hip firing is the best way to play the bow? Not necessarily, but it's fun and there's a little bit to learn there, so let's talk about it. So Slugger and Brazen, while these are melee cards, they also affect the bow, so put these in your bow deck. We also have a bunch of reload speed in here because it'll make the bow fire a lot faster. We have some weak spot in here because the bow is affected by weak spot stuff. It's also affected by bullet damage stuff, but basically it's a bunch of stuff that just makes the bow a little bit better. We also have enough accuracy in here, 30%, 20%, 50%, to make it so we have 100% accuracy. I just really want to show you what that looks like. We also have fill and full lead because it works well with the bow. We have some more damage. We have this because we're already getting rid of our ability to aim down sights anyway. We have glass cannon because typically you're going to play the bow with Tala, so glass cannon not only increases your bow damage, but again, it gets you over that 1.1 threshold with Tala. And we have hellfire to make it so you move faster while you are firing your bow. And then at the very bottom, I have Stealthy Passage, because it's just a really nice card to have on something like No Hope, where your objectives really, really matter, and they give you extra copper. In case you didn't know, secondary objectives can give you 2,000 copper per level if you accomplish them for your whole team, like 500 per person. So they're a really big deal, so don't hit those hazards. And Stealthy Passage really helps a lot in disabling hazards. So I threw Stealthy Passage in here just so I could talk about it. But let me go in and load in with a bow. But real quick, before we load in with the bow, there's a couple of things I want to talk about with it because, again, I don't necessarily agree that hip firing the bow is the best way to use it because the bow is actually really strong. So let's go default bow here in Fort Hope, and you'll see it fires about this fast, which is honestly pretty good. And it has about this accuracy when I'm firing it. If I'm moving around, it gets a little bit worse. So it becomes more of like a short range thingy rather than kind of mid range because you can't get yourself in trouble. You'll miss a few times if you are firing it this way. But something to keep in mind. A white bow does 32 damage with a hip fire. And hit him in the head, it'll double, right? Now, if you take the bow and you pull it back and you get ready to shoot it, it will do 132 damage, which is a lot more than 32. Look at that, 264 damage to the head. Now, in case you're wondering, well, okay, I mean, yeah, that's a lot more damage, but how much more damage is that? Well, here's a 50 cal sniper rifle. And if you take a look at how much a 50 cal sniper rifle does, it also does 132 damage. So, both pretty strong. So, by giving up our ability to aim down sights, we lose our ability to do that really big, chunky 132 damage. But again, I just want to show you something fun. So let's do that. Now Tala starts with a bow, so she's a good pick for it. But something cool about the bow is it uses melee attachments, so I can stuff these bad boys onto my bow. And let's see how fast my bow is firing now. You see I have 100% accuracy, so my reticle is not opened up at all. Okay? That's the effect of 100% accuracy. And look how fast I fire this thing with the way this deck is compared to what you just saw in Fort Hope. And it is a laser! So this is pretty fun. And then I also have Hellfire, which allows me to move around like this with a bit more speed as I'm firing the bow. I can strafe pretty well. You got some pretty good speed here. Now, something else to know about 100% accuracy, which is part of the reason why I made this deck, I just want to talk about it, is you see this shotgun? Well, if you do manage to get 100% accuracy on your character, it turns your shotgun into slugs. Just like that. You see how it's only one little bullet there? Well, there's actually like, I don't know, 12 pellets in that one little chunk, and I can be all the way back here. And again, it's 100% accuracy. In fact, you can kind of see the of all the different bullets there. Okay. Now, that might have looked like a lot of attack speed, but I didn't even have fill 'em full of lead going here, which makes you fire even faster. So this thing's just like a lot of fun to use if you are dealing with a horde and they're kind of coming through a pinched area like a doorway or something like that. Look at this. Just keep going, man. Now, I'm using up stamina as I do this, right? But that doesn't really matter. You can just keep going. It might matter a bit more if you were to be pulling back your bow and trying to get those really chunky shots that we showed inside of Fort Hope. But it doesn't really matter if you're just hip firing everything. So, again, is this the best way to play it? But it's fun. A lot of fun. You can just sit here blap, blap, blap. And finally, we have a little deck here called Bend But Don't Break. Honestly, kind of a meme deck, so don't take it too seriously. But there are a few things in here that are really worth talking about. So in terms of who we're going to use this on, we're going to use it on Dan. Because Dan has a few crazy things going on. One is that he doesn't get knocked back while he's picking people up, and he gets damage resistance. In fact, he can have so much damage resistance that I'm pretty certain that you can be like immune to damage if you're on a lower difficulty while you're picking somebody up. That used to be a thing where we would get negative use speed and then try to sit in this state, which is kind of cool. But anyway, other things about Dan is when he revives somebody, weird things happen. That could be a team gets an extra life, or your team heals up fully, or your team or somebody drops a bunch of grenades, or copper spawns. A bunch of crazy things can happen. But also, Dan gets a huge combat buff, similar to like a stack of Avenge of the Fallen. And we'll talk about Avenge of the Fallen right now. So let's go to Dex and Bend But Don't Break. So Avenge of the Fallen. When you or a teammate becomes incapped, all teammates gain 30% damage, 20% reload speed, and unlimited ammo for 10 seconds. So that's a lot of damage. That's basically, if one person goes down on the team, an extra 90% damage for the team, right? Because of those 3 people that are remaining. Something to know about Avenge of the Fallen, though, is that it stacks. So you can have 4 stacks of this on your team. So that would mean if one person goes down, everybody on who's remaining gets 120% extra damage, which is like 300, unless I'm doing this wrong in my head, that's like 360% extra damage when one person goes down per player, right? And you can down multiple people on your team to really just make this go really high. So if you really want to metagame this, oh, and then Dan on top of that gets his own stack of Avenge of the Fallen, basically. It's inherent to him. So if you really want to metagame this and kind of break some of the higher challenge stuff in the game, what you can do is you can have everybody on your team run Avenge of the Fallen and slam up some revive speed, and then have Dan on your team shoot your teammate down, pick him up real quick with crazy revive speed, and then just melt stuff with the sheer power of Avenge of the Fallen. And you also can have Inspiring Sacrifice to heal everybody up anyway, right? I think this might even work with Overheal. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. So I'll try to show you that a little bit, but this is a really busted way to play the game. It's hard to do it because I have bots, and bots don't have Avenge of the Fallen anymore. Avenge of the Fallen max stacks is 12, by the way, but we can kind of display it a little bit. I'll try to down a couple of the bots. So we also have Out with a Bang. So whenever a teammate is incapped or dies, they drop an active pipe bomb, which is really, really nice from a Bend But Don't Break perspective. We have Needs of the Many to give everybody an extra life. We have Life Insurance to give people extra lives, including myself, in case I want to be the person who gets downed. We have Rousing Speech to have everybody's team revive speed go up and also help with in-cap trauma if you're going to be purposely downing your teammates. We have Pep Talk, mainly just to talk about how you can stack it up with Dan. I don't know if I'd put Pep Talk in my deck seriously, but it's fun that you can have like 6 flat damage resistance from anything and basically makes you immune to common, which is really funny. We have Experimental Stun Gun, because this is actually a really nice card to help protect people, and I'll showcase that. Basically, it turns your bash into a stun gun that has a radius, and it can really save your team in a lot of scenarios. We have Breakout, because it'll help you in case you get hit by a Hawker and you're the last one on your team. We have Amped Up in case you hit a Horde. We have Hyper Focus, because Dan's going to absolutely poop out damage. Again, kind of a meme deck, but also kind of not. Like, if you really try to get more serious about this and really build into the deck, I just threw this together real quick. If your team coordinates around this idea, you just shred stuff. It's like, it's criminal how strong you can get. A little bit of a history lesson for you. Way back in the day, people used to do some really crazy things with Avenge of the Fallen because they can make it stack to like 200 or something like that if they glitched it out a certain way. So people would like one-tap an ogre with an Uzi, stuff like that. So same energy, basically. So if I try to kill these guys here, it's actually kind of hard. But I can go up here and just like melt this tall boy. Look how much I'm chunking him for. That was a monstrous tall boy on no hope, by the way. Take a look. Like, absolutely slaughtering the poor thing. And that's only with 1 stack of Avenge of the Fallen. This can get multiplied by, like... We can have 3 more people on the team running it. Like, it gets so strong. You can just shred stuff. And then to showcase a little bit about how strong experimental stun gun can be, I have it loaded up right now. So I'm just gonna, like, come up here and punch everyone around me. And you see how they all get stunned? So this will work on a mutation. It'll work on a hag. It'll work on a common. It'll work on pretty much anything. So go ahead and use your experimental stun gun if you're not sniping. It's really, really nice. Yeah, let's see if I can get a tall boy to run over here and I'll just, like, stop him. Come here, tall boy. Nope. And now you can just blast him. Pretty easy peasy. And I really cannot stress how much a 4 stack of Inspiring Sacrifice heals everyone. Here, take a look. Here, I'll try to hurt them a little bit. Here, take that, Tala. And here comes Hoffman. Right, see how injured they are? Now, take a look at this 4 stack here. Look at how much HP everybody's healing. Each one of those little chunks is 25 HP. Okay? So that's just from one person getting downed. It is very hard to die in this game if you have 4 stacks of Avenge of the Fallen and 4 stacks of Inspiring Sacrifice. So if your crew's struggling, consider trying it out. On top of the fact that you could have Mom on your team, and Mom also provides temp HP if somebody goes down. So have Mom on your team, 4 stacks of Avenge of the Fallen, 4 stacks Inspiring Sacrifice, and you can do whatever the heck else you want with your deck, and you're probably going to get by just fine as you're learning the game. Okay? And I'm pretty sure that those are really early cards inside the supply lines as you're trying to unlock cards. So those are really strong cards. This one right here, Avenge of the Fallen, Inspiring Sacrifice. And then if you have Mom on your team, like I mentioned, she also kind of goes into this bend but don't break mentality where anybody on the team gets 25 HP anytime a team is incapped. So, and she's got that revive speed, man, and the temp health decay. All that together, and you can really, really do a lot for your team. Okay? So, this has been a lot. I recorded for 2 hours at the looks of it. Oh my goodness. So, I hope you learned a few things. Hope this helped you out in case you're trying to find things to do in this game or you're trying to discover new ways to play. There's still some other stuff in here that you could definitely play around with. We didn't cover most of it, but enough to get you started so you can start experiencing the game for yourself. So, I highly encourage you. Test things out. Change up these decks. Don't just take them as they are. Make them your own. These are not the end-all be-all of anything, okay? Make them your own. Make them fun. Experiment around. Like, I have Battle Lust in here, right? But a lot of people would disagree with me and say I should pick Vanguard, right? So stuff like that. Do what you want. Have different cards. If you don't know what Vanguard does, here, I'll bring it up. And have fun. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching, and then I'll see you in the next video that we do around here.